Okay. Oh, we have some people already starting to come in. Good evening, everyone, / good morning. Thank you guys all so much for joining with us. We're just setting up a few last things, making sure Facebook is all set up. Okay, it looks like we are good. Great, okay. So I will go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight. We're going to be with Heather Morris and Barbara Goldstein from Herc, and Heather Morris is the author, obviously. Thank you guys for joining and being part of the Midtown Reader community. If you guys are interested in purchasing Three Sisters by Heather Morris, we do have her signed copy actually in the store ready to be purchased, and I will drop the link in the chat. So I will go ahead and kind of get started reading about their bios, and then I will pass it off to Barbara and Heather, and they will have their conversation. We will leave time at the end for Q&A, so just drop that in the chat, and then once the time comes, I will read it out to everyone and we get that all answered. So just a little bit about Heather. So Heather Morris is a native of New Zealand who now lives in Australia. While working in a hospital in Melbourne, she studied and wrote screenplays, one of which was optioned by an Academy Award-winning screenwriter in the United States. In 2003, Heather met a gentleman, Lally, who might have a story worth telling. Lally entrusted the innermost details of his life during the Holocaust to her. Heather originally wrote his story as a screenplay before reshaping it into her debut novel, The Tattoos of Auschwitz. She is also the author of Silka's Journey and Stories of Hope. Now here's a little bit about Barbara. Barbara Goldstein is the Herc Executive Director. If you guys don't know what Herc is, it's the Holocaust Education Resource Council. Barbara was born in New York City and moved to Florida in 1986. She has lived in Tallahassee since 1989 with her husband, Ron, and her 2 children, Michael and Stephanie. The state of Florida requires that the Holocaust be taught in schools in all grade levels, and in 2006, Barbara was one of the founders and co-chair of the Tallahassee Holocaust Education Program, sponsored by the National Council of Jewish Women, Tallahassee section, to assist with the unfunded mandate. She developed meaningful programs and forged partnerships with the Florida Commissions on Human Relations and Leon County School District to bring Holocaust education to our teachers and students district-wide. You can visit and learn more about Barbara and the Holocaust resources by going to holocaustresources.org. Now here's the fun part where we get into a little bit about the newest book, Three Sister, which just came out tomorrow for us, or yesterday for us. Oh, goodness. So here's a little bio about the book. Against all odds, 3 Slovakian sisters have survived years of imprisonment in the most notorious death camp in Nazi Germany, Auschwitz. Livia, Magda, and Sibi have clung together, nearly died from starvation and overworked, and the brutal whims of the guards in the place of horror. But now the alleys are closing in, and sisters have one last hurdle to face, the death march from Auschwitz. As the Nazis try to erase any evidence of the prisoners held there, due to the last-minute stroke of luck, the 3 of them are able to escape formation and hide in the woods for days before being rescued. And this is where the story begins. From there, the 3 sisters travel to Israel to their new home, but the battle for freedom takes on new forms. Livia, Magda, and Sibi must face the ghosts of their past and some secrets that they have kept from each other to find true peace and happiness. And now I will throw it over to Barbara and Heather.
Thank you very much. Heather, this book is just so inspiring, and it's just so complicated to write about this subject. And I just think one story leads to another story, and the sisters is just, there's so many layers, but just the sisters alone just is so beautiful. Can you talk about the 3 sisters and how that brings the love and the survival together?
Absolutely, but first, Barbara, let me just say how much I honor you and your colleagues and what you do in Tallahassee and the other centers around the United States and everywhere. Yes, so thank you, thank you. 3 sisters, Livy. Her name is Livia. I call her Livy because that's her family pet name. So if you see me dropping the A off her name, it's because I'm now part of the family. But for those 3 young girls, and they were just young girls, and Livy was only 15 when she was taken to Auschwitz. Magda was 17 and Sibi 19. But the story starts before that. It starts when they were even younger. Livy actually only 3 years of age. when they made a promise to their father that they would stay together, they would support each other, they would never be separated, that they were stronger as the three of them than they would ever be as individuals. And it's a spoiler alert, but it's not a spoiler alert because you're going to learn about it if you read it in the first 2 or 3 pages anyway. But their father died the day after they made that promise. So as they were growing up in Slovakia, little Livy was constantly reminded by her older sisters, remember the promise we made to Papa. So when they are separated in April 1942, Livy and Sibby taken to Auschwitz, Magda in hospital, and so she wasn't taken. She did not know her sisters had been taken. They are now separated. Now the book, as you heard, it plays out in several parts. You know, the time in Slovakia, the time of Sibby and Livy in Auschwitz-Birkenau, but there's this other narrative running parallel to that, and that's of Magda, beautiful, quiet, sensitive Magda, who is still back in Slovakia with her mother and grandfather, hiding in the forests, hiding in neighbors, or being hidden in neighbors' ceilings on those Fridays when the Link guards would come around to try and find her. For 2.5 years, folks, she survived in Slovakia. But of course she got caught. And she does then end up in Auschwitz. How 3 girls, well, the 2 sisters there and the other, could find each other in this camp of 100,000 plus people where you were separated, you're in your own block, you're in your own zone, but they did find each other. On the 18th of January 1945, they were taken on that death march. You know, Barbara, the story of their death march could be a story, a book, a novel in itself. You heard a little bit about it, but let me just say that it actually didn't go on for days when they ran from the Germans, from the Nazis. It went on for weeks. And that their time going through the villages and the small towns with Germany at that point, well, one day they were being confronted by the Germans, the next day it was the Russians, and this went on day after day until they did reach the Allies, and then subsequently were liberated back to Czechoslovakia.
So then the other part is this part about Israel, because Israel is just such a beautiful place, and that they ended up after being liberated and then starting in a new country and having to start over again, but everybody was in Israel starting over again. Can you talk, did you go to Israel actually?
Yes, I've been there a couple of times now, spending time with Livy and Magda, because these 2 beautiful
Isn't she,
ladies.
how old is she now? 95, I think I saw.
Yeah, Livy's 95 and Magda's 97.
That's right.
Actually, that's not quite right. Magda's 98. Now, Livy is in fact 96.
Right.
She's a year older than she thought she was. And maybe we'll talk about this later on, but I found that out by having my researcher in Slovakia and go and look at the documents, the births, deaths, and marriages of the family. And there I discovered a couple of things. Well, I discovered several things, actually. And one was that Livy, in fact, was a year older than she thought she was. I remember telling her on a WhatsApp video only a few months back and saying, hey, I've got to tell you that you're out with your birth, you're a year older. She went, oh, well, what does it matter? You know, at my age, I'll take it. So.
Well, I want to tell you that my parents were Holocaust survivors, so I can also relate as a child of what it's like to have, you know, people that survived this horrible time. And my family did go to Israel, so I just feel such a connection to this book and how important that was. But go back, because you just spent so much time earlier in the book on Auschwitz. I mean, when I saw that you talked about the food and the starving and helping each other and just the luck that they had. It's just so much luck was to make it through each day and resistance. So talk about how they meant, surviving was such an important part of every day is surviving, and that's what they wanted to do.
I'm glad you used that word luck. I have met many survivors, like you probably have as well, in many countries. And every single one of them, when you ask them, what do you think it was that enabled you to survive? And everyone says the word, I was lucky. You know, Lally used to say it always in threes. I was lucky, 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 he would say. And yes, incredible that you lived or died by luck, by the flick of a wrist, by whether or not you got that extra piece of bread or potato, whatever was given out. It was luck all along the way. But of course, there had to be something extra as well. There had to be that drive, what wanted you to survive as well. So when the luck came in,
right, and it was their promise to each other as sisters.
it was their promise to each other and to their
Right.
father.
Yes.
And for the girls in Auschwitz, you know, hoping that Magda was safe and that they could be reunited.
And I think if they were alone, they would never have been as lucky. They just kept each other going and going in all different ways. And it's just such, I mean, it's there's so much learning from this. What would be your message to what do we learn from these wonderful stories of surviving?
You know, I think one of the main lessons from this book and from the girls, we can even extrapolate into our day-to-day lives, because during their time, both when they were just the two of them together and when Magda came along, the sisters took turns. They weren't doing it consciously, but they took turns in supporting the other. As one went down and looked like they didn't want to go on, one of the others stepped up and brought them back up. And throughout the time, both talking to the sisters and their families, reading the testimonies, because Livy and Sibby made Shoah testimonies. Now they're in Hebrew, so I've had them translated, but I've also watched them. And hearing how they all brought different strengths as the others faltered, because even Sibby, the oldest, the more mature, the one who supported Livy for probably the first year and a half in Auschwitz-Birkenau, Livy freely admits she would not have survived without her. Then when Sibby did get sick and wasn't going to make it, Livy had to step up and find the resources to be able to help her get through being unwell. Well, not just unwell, she was dying. And then when Magda came into the fold, Magda brought memory. She brought the stories of their mother and grandfather and what they'd been doing for the last 2.5 years to them. And she was the one who, I call her the keeper of the memories.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's interesting you said that, because this is what we do when we talk about teaching about the Holocaust. Like, you can have different people, like you could look at the three sisters and you asked each one of them, they all have different stories, but they were all in the same place.
Yeah.
So their memory is different, but the same. And that's what's so interesting when we say we were there, but they were all there. But you see, you have the different stories, and that's what makes the book so beautiful, because they're together, they're helping each other. And I think that's why we want to learn about that. How do we help each other actually and do more?
And they still do it too today. Nothing's changed. Sibby died in 2015, so she's no longer with them. But for those other two sisters who talk at least twice a day on the phone, they both live in their own apartments independently on their own, getting on with their lives, and talk twice a day minimum. A beautiful, beautiful relationship, and to have been in the room with the two of them and see the banter and that kind of talk that only siblings can do, when you can rib each other and have fun at the other's expense and get away with it. It's quite lovely.
And it teaches us what survival really means, actually, and what it's like to come from nothing and to really accomplish, just getting through life. And to what they, what I remember in the book, I was reading about the clothes that they shared and the food they shared, and they had to learn there was no privacy. And you explained everything so well. I mean, talk about how you were able to break it down. Because when you talked about going to Auschwitz and the things were taken to Canada, now explain to people where Canada is, because that's not a known place usually, right?
Yeah, so I love the name that I don't even know who gave those sorting buildings where they sorted through all the belongings of the prisoners that came in. I cannot find the initial source of who named it the Canada. I know why it was named the Canada, but who gave it that name. And it seems to have been given that name very early on too.
It was.
Auschwitz-Birkenau. do
So
you
tell
actually
us,
know-
why was it named Canada? That's what I don't remember actually.
Oh, okay. It was called the Canada because for those young girls that were working in those horrific conditions, going through the belongings of the prisoners, of the people who came in, not just prisoners, all those who didn't survive. While they were doing that, they dreamed of the perfect place to be right now. Where would be the place? And of course, it was never going to be anywhere in Europe. And for them, the ideal country was Canada. So
That's
they named
right.
the buildings of Canada.
That's right. And Canada, actually, when I was there 4 years ago, it was just a small barrack. It was a very small barrack actually in this big camp. But that was a well-known place where they used to put the items that from the prisoners.
Yeah, they had some little teams for the girls, for example. They were part of the brigade or the unit that was called the white handkerchief. So
Right.
there was a white and a red and a big general one as well. So that meant when they went to work, they wore these white sort of headscarf to identify they belonged to that working unit.
And you just were able to really put Auschwitz into the right way in so many areas because it's so complicated, that location. And even talking about the numbers, tell us again, how did you write about the numbers and the 4 numbers and 5 numbers? Remember that?
Yes, and all the girls that I've written about, from Gita and Silka, and now these 3 girls, and I had a very, very dear friend here in Australia until just early this year when she died aged 97. Her name was Lottie. She was in fact Gita's best friend in the camp. Her name is Dana in the book of the tattooist of the Auschwitz. But all these girls are Slovakian. Now, when you consider that the Slovakian boys and girls were the first Jewish people taken into Auschwitz, the very first, in March 1942, April 1942, and subsequently, how did they survive? Enough of them survived for nearly 3 years, when others never survived 24 hours. Well, there was always, of course, that element of luck. The fact that when they were taken there to build Birkenau. So they were taken there as labor. So that was then in their favor. But I uncovered through reading or hearing from Livy and Magda, but also from this amazing book written by an American lady, Heather McAdam, called The 999. Look, it's an incredible story, folks. If you haven't seen or read about it, it is about the very first 999 girls who were taken to Auschwitz. And in there, she also was able to confirm what I'd been told, that, I think it was about 1943, one of the female heads of the SS, she managed to persuade the hierarchy there that those girls with only 4 numbers, the Slovakian girls, no longer had to go to selection. So they still could be taken away, but not in that process every day of selection. Hence the 4 numbers that survived.
Yes, and then some people don't realize that Auschwitz was the only location that put tattoos on people. And then and the sequence of the numbers, because you talk about the 4 numbers and then the 5 number, and the different numbers, and it probably even comes from the tattooist of that other book, but this is really important. Even the numbers is just, there's so much meaning behind these numbers actually.
Oh, absolutely. They denoted when you came in, they denoted your country you came in. In the case of the Roma, the Gypsy people, it then denoted their culture by the letter Z being put in front of their numbers. So yeah, it was very systematic, very German, let's face it.
Yeah, and we talk about how calculated everything was. And when you talk about the trains, what was the trip like and all of the other traveling, it was just beyond horrible. How did that explain how they was, how they handled that and survived all that?
But Livy and Sibby in April 42, Livy's memories of it are probably the vaguest of all she's got, because at that point she said she was totally traumatized. And she spent, there was nearly 2 days. I mean, it's not that far really from Slovakia, from where they were in Poprad to Auschwitz in Poland. But it took them about 2 days to get there, because the train would just sit for hours in the middle of nowhere and then go on a bit further. The train never wanted to pass through any towns or villages during daylight. So they constantly had to stop. And so that when they did go through any populated towns, it was at nighttime. Yeah, once again, calculated, trying to keep secret what it was that they were transporting, human cargo. Sibby talks about it, of course, in her testimony. Not having met Sibby, I wondered, would I be able to write this girl, this woman, given that I had spent time with Livy and Magda, and I could see in these women in their 90s what I thought they would be like as teenagers. And their family tell me I got it right. There was still that incredible spark and fight in Livy. Even today, she is such a lively thing, laughs so much. To her, she needs to laugh. She has the giggle of a schoolgirl. It's quite beautiful. Whereas Magda is still the more serious, the more studious, the quiet one. How am I going to describe Sibby, seeing I can't meet her? Well, I watched her show a tape. I might have gone a little bit off what your question was, but I'm kind of getting there.
No, go ahead. I love hearing about the Showa tapes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I got her show a tape, and I got it translated first from Hebrew. So I read it all, and then I sat down and I watched it and put it on mute, because I didn't want to have the distraction of not understanding what was being said. And I just watched Sibby's body language. I watched this woman who, when she made it, was in her 70s or 80s still, and just saw that confidence that was still in her. And she was sitting in front of a camera being videoed, not something that happened every day in their lives in Israel. But she wasn't afraid of that camera. She wasn't afraid of that person that was interviewing her. Within a matter of minutes, she kicked back in that armchair and she got all relaxed, and this is my story and you're gonna hear it. So, okay, I found my Sibby.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one had such a sense of humor and was loving to laugh. So she learned that to love life, because that's what I find from coming from such a horrible time to learning how to, again, appreciate good things and laugh and love is just hard. And then, so not everybody can do that the same way. And that's.
She said that and she remembered, because her grandfather used to say it to her, and if you can't laugh, smile. Second best.
It's best to just do that, but what they went through, and making it through every day was a resistance. I mean, look at how they had to resist in the most horrible situation, and they did it. So I think that's something we have to learn from. I mean, to be able to make it through those horrible times and to survive.
Oh, absolutely. And the other story, well, the other thing I would like people to get from this book, which is a book about love, and when you hear someone say that, all too often we think about romantic love. When you say the word love, the first thing that pops into your head is romantic love. Well, it is for me, has been for a while. But that's not probably the most important, I've decided. There is nothing like the unconditional love of siblings. And that is the love that you can take to the bank, if you want to use a term, that you can rely on. That played out for the girls, because without giving too much of the book away, though you're getting a bit of it, and that's fine, I don't mind. There are a couple of times when Sibby and Livy are in Auschwitz that they do something because one of them is feeling threatened and like they may die, they may get selected. And I'm referring to the point in the book when Livy is this young girl. She was 16 because it was the following winter. It could not go on. She'd had enough. And she told her big sister that she wanted to be the person that controlled her destiny, and she would end her life. She did not want her sister to do that. You know, she was saying, I'm doing it. But Sibby wouldn't have a bar of it. You go, I go. You know, it's as simple as that. You go, I go.
That's what happened. They took care of each other, and that's unconditional love, because they could have been killed. Each one of them, or both of them, or all of them could have been killed, but they took care of each other. Even, can you talk about when they were sick with typhus and how how they got through all that illnesses that they had to deal with?
Once again, they were lucky with the capo they had. This is something which is a sensitive area to talk about and to write about. The role of capos, block leaders, one and the same in those the camps, because every block had one. And for the most part, they are not treated historically very, very kindly, and rightly so. So there's this disconnect between what the majority, I think, of capos and block leaders, their behavior was, and what the behavior of others were. And they've been lumped into the one basket, I think, a little bit too much. But they had a capo who was kind, who did help protect the girls and the women. It's look, I use girls, women, they were mostly girls, but they're, of course, women. At what point do you become a woman? Or maybe they became a woman at the age of 15 when you find yourself in these circumstances. But they did have that capo. So she actually helped to hide them, to stop them from having to attend the selections by hiding them in the block and not letting them go to work. It's several times. Sibby actually had it worse and more often than Livy did. But yeah, the other sister then just stepped up, made sure that she brought back some of the food, her food, that they could try and force feed the other person. They both, the two things that they used, which they credit to this day with saving their lives and cannot have, which they have every day without remembering, are garlic and onions.
That's right.
Garlic and onions. Someone told them they had remedial properties. And when Livy had typhus, Sibby found garlic. Somebody gave her a garlic bulb. She did not know what to do with it. No, it was the other way around. She got an onion. Livy got the onion. And so when Sibby was sick, Livy couldn't find any onions, and somebody gave her a garlic bulb. She'd never seen one, didn't know what to do with it. She tried to stuff this whole garlic bulb and poor made Sibby's mouth. And it was the capo that came along and said, no, break off the clove, take away the peeling, now stuff it in her mouth. So
all these little foods become very important, actually. And probably to this day, when they eat an onion, they will never forget what the onion means. And also, the fact that you were talking about Theresienstadt and about the Red Cross, it was just so, explain a little bit about that too, how that was part of it, because that was a very meaningful, actually.
Yes, well, the camp from Theresienstadt in Prague, out of Prague, Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, the names change, don't they, as we go by. That camp that went and got emptied out and brought to Birkenau, and they were separated out and just kept in this one holding camp because there was families there. And that was the difference, by the way, folks, with Birkenau and Auschwitz. That, with the exception of the Theresienstadt camp that came in late 43 and the Gypsy camp, there were no children in Birkenau. All the other camps were men and women. The children were all over in Auschwitz. Some were brought to the hospital there where that evil person, who I will not give a title, worked and was seen there. But for the most part, they were not families. Theresienstadt was a difference. But yeah, that was short-lived.
Right, and because they would travel. The trains were bringing them in more and more, and they had to exterminate the people to have more room. And it was, yes, and a lot of people don't realize, if you can explain more even about Auschwitz and Birkenau, because people don't realize it was so huge that Auschwitz and Birkenau had two different purposes, actually.
Yeah, you stand on the front of it, don't you, Barbara, and you go, where does this place begin and end? You can't see. It is massive. just talking about the camps and people coming in huge numbers and having to be then processed, or the ones who had been there the longest and were the weakest, well, we would exterminate them so that we've got this fresh, hopefully slightly fitter bodies to do the work. I'm going to share a story with you that I haven't shared very often at all in the past, because it's really, really personal and hard-hitting for me. As the Totos of Auschwitz came out here in Australia, it was one of the third or fourth talk I did. So I'm a newbie. Here I am, this non-Jewish person standing in the most Jewish town suburb in Melbourne with over 500 people in the room. And I had this amazing event. It was all about the book, and I had other people there from the Holocaust Centre in Melbourne and one or two other experts. And after it was finished and I was at the front and just standing around talking, people were going out. I saw this elderly man, and he had a younger man and woman beside him. By younger, I mean sort of maybe 50s, 60s. They left, and then I saw him come back in. That's what caught my eye, him come back in. And this other couple come back and grab him by the arm and drag him out again. And so he disappeared. Oh, okay. But he came back in. This happened 3 or 4 times. And I went, oh, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'll go and have a talk to them. So I did. And this man, I went up and said, is there something I can help you with? Is there something you want to know? Did you know Lully? And he said, yes, I knew Lully. And I said, is there a problem? And the other two introduced themselves. They were a son and a daughter. And they said, look, Dad wanted to come tonight. We didn't want him to come, but he insisted, so we've come with him. And they said, it's all right. And they said to him, it's okay, Dad. We know you were in the Holocaust. We know you survived. And this man looked at me pleading, and he said, tell them I was in Auschwitz. I was in Birkenau. Tell them I was there. I'm going, oh, okay, not sure how I can do this. And then the son said to him, it's okay, Dad. We know you were in a camp, but it wasn't Auschwitz or Birkenau. Only people that were in there, they had numbers, and you don't have a number, Dad. And he's getting upset. They're all in tears. And I looked at this beautiful old man and I said to him, are you Hungarian? And he went, yes. I said, did you come there in June or July 1944? And he said, July. I said, your dad was there. I said, he says he was there. He's there because Lully told me at that point in time they were bringing in the Hungarian Jewish boys, girls, men and women, 10,000 a day, and they couldn't number them. And so they did stop numbering for that period when the masses were coming in. Well, this poor, beautiful old man just dissolved. His kids were in tears. They didn't know. They said, we didn't know. Everybody we've met said you had to have a number if you were in Auschwitz.
Oh my goodness. But that's true. A lot of people don't realize at the very end, they did not tattoo everybody.
No.
Because they couldn't do it. There were so many people, they couldn't keep numbering them. That's what happened. Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
So I have a little personal question. So what got you interested in this subject? Because do you have any family connection, or do you have anything that was personally connecting to you this, or tell us what kind of got you started on this? Because this is a very complicated topic.
Very simple, Barbara. I met the man. I met Lully.
Oh, okay.
It was as simple as that. I had coffee with a friend one day, and she said to me, I have a friend whose mother has just died. His father has asked him to find somebody he can tell a story to. That person can't be Jewish. You're not Jewish. Do you want to meet him? I said, what's the story? And she said, I don't know. I just know he wants to meet a non-Jewish person. And so the next week, I knocked on the door of 87-year-old grieving Lully Sokolov. And from that moment, I suddenly realized this man was living history. He wanted me to tell his story, tell my story, tell the world about this girl whose arm I held and stabbed numbers into it, and who I fell in love with. Tell the world about Gita. But he was there for me to tell and write a story about the love of his life. And then, of course, it all unfolded from there. And one of the reasons why he actually did, there were several reasons why eventually, you know, I did get to tell the story. For him, my not being Jewish meant that I had no baggage. I had no family history. I had nothing personal that I could in any way connect to him and to his story. Because he believed, and I think rightfully, that there could not be a Jewish person alive who was not touched by the Holocaust. So that was his rationale. You know, I've spoken to in Jewish communities all around the world, and I've just heard from so many people, Lally was a wise man. So my telling of his story is very simple.
What a powerful message that was right now. How can we be Jewish and not be, if we're Jewish, we have to be touched by the Holocaust, because it's just the ultimate survival. And then if you're not Jewish, you have to learn about it.
And look, I was actually incredibly embarrassed to admit how little I knew about it. In my small town New Zealand education had really taught me nothing.
So you had to learn a lot, right? You had to learn.
I learned a lot, and I learned it quickly, and I learned it because I had this most amazing man who was in my life. He took me to the Holocaust Museum in Melbourne several times to just show me the museum. We have a really beautiful one, both in Melbourne and in Sydney. In fact, I'm just so privileged that the launch of the Three Sisters, though done remotely, last Sunday, that 5 days ago, yes, 5 days ago, was hosted by the Sydney Jewish Museum.
Oh, wow.
So they acted as the host, and Aviva there, and the others were all part of it. So just so touched. I've spoken at the London Synagogue, at synagogues from everywhere from Johannesburg to throughout the US. And thank you to your community for how you've embraced me.
Yeah, we are so happy. So are you going to be doing more of these throughout the United States and Florida, or when have you started like speaking around other places?
I've just started yesterday speaking by Zoom, which is the
Okay.
only way I can do it right now because Qantas won't fly.
You might want to tell people what you told me before, that you're actually quarantined right now.
Yes, I am. I'm on day 9 of a 14-day hotel quarantine. I have not left this room that I'm sitting in. I do have a balcony, which is lovely, so I can go and get fresh air because I'm up in Brisbane. Australia, the borders are closed between for each state. I come from Melbourne. I'm relocating to Brisbane. But in order to do that, because there are COVID cases in Melbourne, none in Brisbane, the government insists I could do this hotel quarantine. It is a stunningly beautiful day out here. It will get to about, it's telling me it's currently 22 degrees, 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll get to about 30. But yes, I'm in hotel quarantine. So I hope when we do open the borders, not only in Australia, but internationally, there's some talk of that happening in January. My first flight, I've already booked it on the 12th of January from Brisbane to LA. I'm coming to see family who live in San Diego, but how I can then travel around your country, which I just would love to do.
Well, I guess the book will be everywhere, I'm sure, because I could see it showing, at all the different book clubs and the different places. It'll be actually very, very much in demand. It's actually, I would still have to say, just the fact of the Three Sisters, you have to just keep using that as so much love and survival. And their stories are just, you did really a great job of sharing. I mean, what's another part of it that you want us to just hear about that is just so meaningful?
Well, when you get to the end and you read those words, the end, I'm not really sure they're there, but you'll know it because it's the end of the book. Don't stop there. Can I ask readers, keep turning the page where you will read letters from the families of the sisters. In fact, you'll read one from Livy herself. So she has written a letter, but we've included all the family. Can I tell you that today, which is the 7th for me, this is a day I'm going to spend in incredible reflection, and I am going to be not here in Australia, but I'm going to spend the rest of the day in my head in Israel, in a kibbutz out from Haifa, where 4 generations of the family, every single member of that family, are gathering today for the wedding of one of Livia's granddaughters.
Oh, how beautiful.
I am meant to be there. I got one of the first invites, but I can't leave the country. But yes, the 7th of October, in this lovely kibbutz, and a stream, a tributary from the Sea of Galilee, this young couple will marry. And Livy and all the families will be there to celebrate.
That's just so, again, so phenomenal that they now have children and grandchildren, and the whole family is just carried on to show that because they survived. Look at that beautiful. How many people are in the family now? Do you know, like all their other?
Well, there's 4 generations, and so each of the girls had 2 children.
Okay.
One had 2 girls, one had 2 boys, the other had a boy and a girl. So there are exactly 3 girl cousins and 3 boy cousins. They subsequently went off and had either 2, 3, in one case 4 children of their own who are now adults, and most of them are married, and now they are producing those great grandchildren for the girls. So yes, and they will all be there. There's squillions of them now. It's just wonderful. This is what Livy says we survived for.
Wow. So do you know if they ever, earlier in their life, if they ever went back to their home where they had come from to go to see, did they ever go back to visit or not at all? After
No,
they
haven't been back to Slovakia.
No.
No.
So after they moved to Israel, they never went back to visit any part of where they came from.
No, they cut it off. And it's interesting because now when I talk about Slovakia and I talk about their hometown of Ronov, to Livy and the family, they actually now are having just these lovely, kind memories about it. And it's beautiful that those memories of their return when they were once again cast out from their home, taken over. And in the book, you read what happened when they went there and Magda's being able to get entry into the house and why. But now they've done that full circle of, I only want to remember the fond things and the
Well, of
good
course,
things.
we all want, right,
Yeah.
'cause everybody, we all want to block out the not fun.
Their father's buried there in Koshita.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think a couple of their children have been back. They went back as adults to visit their grandfather's grave and to just see their home country. It's interesting, we found a document has been uncovered just recently that Magda wrote. This is a significant document. It'll play out shortly about it, but it's a diary she wrote on that death march. She managed to take whatever word you want to use, a notebook and some pens from one of the concentration camps when she was on the death march. And she wrote a real-time diary, which has only recently been found after 77 years.
Wow.
And when the family did find it, because Magda told me she'd written a diary, but no one else knew anything about it. And the family, when they found it, only a few months ago, and frantically rang me, we found it. I thought, oh my gosh, what does it say? What does it say? And they go, none of us speak Slovakian, so we can't read it. So they sent it to me and it's now been translated.
I was just going to ask you if you translated it.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know what Magda wrote.
So now, oh, wow, that's going to be another book now, right? That could be it.
This is a historically significant document, and the family, rightfully so,
Right.
want it placed in Yad Vashem, and that's where the original will go.
That's beautiful.
But in the meantime, yes, just how we use it and how we use it. Well, I mean, that publicly is yet still to be determined. We're just concentrating on the book right now.
Very good.
Thank you guys so much for the conversation. I'm going to open up the floor now for any questions or comments that may come in. So viewers, if you guys have any questions, please start sending them this way. So then I will read them off, and Heather or Barbara, you guys can go ahead and answer them.
Otherwise, we'll have to make them up ourselves, won't we, Barbara?
I guess I'll just go ahead and start. So the question for me is going to be, when can we expect the next book from you?
I've asked my publishers if I can have 6 months off writing. I don't mind doing a little bit of, we've already kind of determined what I'm writing, but I just want to break. I've written 4 books in under 4 years. I have not been able, I think, to really enjoy the release of them. I just work really hard following the release of them. But that is with the tattooist and with Silka, it's flying into the UK and then into Europe and literally going from country to country to country to country. And I love it, don't get me wrong, I love it. But there's no time for me. Look, here I am in Prague having this amazing event, talking to these incredible people, and I'm gone the next day. So I'm saying now, when I go back to Europe and when I come to the US, can I please just every now and then have a day off?
Yeah.
I'm still going to come and work, and that's the best part of it for me, is to do this in person. But then every now and then, give me a weekend off. Let me enjoy your country. I spend a lot of time in San Diego because I have family there. So, but there's a lot more for me to enjoy.
What does your typical writing structure look like? Does it start in the morning for you? Are you a timed writer? Are you kind of a writer who, when it pops into your mind, you're writing about it? What is your structure?
There isn't one, and that's a bit of a problem for my publishers. Typically, I write at night, late at night, once it's got dark. And once I know the shops are shut, my family aren't going to want me for anything more. I can't see the birds flying past my window. So I'm more often than not will have my long concentrated periods of writing from about 9, 10 o'clock at night through to 2 or 3 in the morning. And then of course I need to sleep in a little bit. And then, yeah, look, hey, I can be distracted so easily. But I get the job done. And
Exactly. Are you planning to write your next book about the same subject?
It will be historical fiction. It will be set during that same period of time. The theatre that it's going to play out in is different.
Okay.
Different but the same.
And if you could give it a 10-word spin on Three Sisters, what would it be? You have one sentence to explain what Three Sisters is about.
The love, support, and courage of siblings. Never underestimate it. In fact, embrace it.
I love it. That's
everybody
great.
Out there, you got a brother or sister, give them a call. Let them know that you love them.
Barbara, do you have any last questions from your end?
It's wonderful, and I love that last message. Just, I've heard that many times, Heather, from survivors, that love your family and love your friends because you just don't know when they won't be here anymore. And that's really what that's what you said. And that's really what I've heard so much. And that's what we have to remember, to be kind and love each other. Like we would if we were needed to be with each other. Yeah.
You asked about my writing, and you know, one of the questions I have been asked in the past, particularly when I go to schools a lot here in Australia, because the Tattooist of Auschwitz is in the school curriculum here in Australia and in parts of New Zealand and parts of the United Kingdom. So I have a huge demand on my time for talking in schools. I love going there in person, otherwise I'm doing Zoom. I found myself actually sometimes now talking in creative writing classes as opposed to the English and the history, because I wrote this story as a screenplay. That was the only way I thought I knew how to write, because I studied it. And for me, learning to write a screenplay came with a formula and rules. So I never considered I could write a novel. So I learned that way. I then took that screenplay and I adapted it into the novel. Didn't really know how to do that either, but with the help of brilliant publishers and editors, we got there. So that is a way of doing it. But every now and then somebody will hit me with the question, how can you write such evil and such tragedy and trauma and get the emotion behind it? I mean, doesn't that affect you? And the simple answer, well, it's not simple, but it's a very clear answer for me. When I am sitting down between those weird hours and I'm writing, I pretty much can write anything. I go into the zone. I'm totally disconnected from what I'm writing about. I'm just writing words. And I'm able to do that really well. I don't know why. Well, I possibly do. I come from a background of working in a social work department at a big hospital. So for me, I can do that. But here's where it gets me. And the next day I go, oh, I better just check what I wrote last night and just sort of see if I want to tweak it. I don't generally sort of want to edit as I'm going, but I then will go back and read it. And when I even start reading my own words, I become a mess. So I'm sorry, I'm probably putting you off reading it. But I have the added emotional context of having sat with that person who I'm now just written horrific, evil things happen to. I can write it, but I can't read it. It's weird, isn't it?
Oh, that's so nice to, I mean, well, not necessarily nice, but it's so nice to hear that you have all this emotion behind it. And that's what, we want as readers to read and to learn, is all this emotion and the story behind it. And I just thank you so much for, explaining about Three Sisters and taking your time to be with us. And Barbara, thank you so much for being with us tonight as well. Heather or Barbara, do you guys have any last final comments you would like to say before we close out for today?
I want to thank you. I want to thank all of the readers in Midtown. I want to thank Tallahassee. Barbara, to you and your colleagues again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do in keeping the memories alive.
Thank you.
And look, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful time spent with you today.
Thank you for doing this. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. And you guys can all get a copy of Three Sisters online or visit our store. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope you have a great night/morning.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.